centralizes everyone's work into one shared and easily accessible workspace. So whether you're in the
Hi
office,
everybody,
home,
give me a
overseas,
second
or on
here
the
as I
go,
battle this
Monday.com will keep your
stupid
team more
ad.
connected than ever.
Oh,
Open
hold
your
on.
free account today.
Oh man, okay, shut up. Maybe it might be best if I just... Okay, here we are. Okay, so here we are, late, first time, I guess I will
And
say.
invest his
No,
entire
no,
$15,000 savings.
Okay, we're done. Okay, so we're done. Welcome to our webinar for Monday. Today is the 23rd. So let's see what kind of havoc we have online right now. It's not looking good, folks. It is just not a happy place, this planet Earth. I always use Yahoo. We could talk about that too. I try to stay away from Bloomberg with the identity politics. Just one of those. So you can see here, it's just down. S&P 2.8, Dow 2.9, NASDAQ. Ooh. I don't know why people look at that. Oil down 3.4. Silver, gold is up. Okay, finally we have things that are supposed to be up. The VIX ain't too bad. Bitcoin is up, and crypto is up 8% and 4%. Asia did not do too good. All right, so here we are. Wow, let me show you crypto yet again and why I like crypto. This is live again. We have two bots running. This one's doing really good. 5 positions, it's up 1%. Well, you can see here. So here's what was taken. Ethereum, Link, IOS, Ethereum Classic, 5 positions, slight negative. That's the first time to see that, to be honest. Win-loss ratio of 60% and a rate of change of 1%. And as I said before, it's these little ones that go negative that have more, so that's position 1 and 2, these two, Ethereum and Link. And if this Ethereum goes negative, the whole thing goes negative, even though it's winning because it's out of whack. I've set this bot not to trade Bitcoin unless the weighted average, as I call it, this guy right here, is at least 1, maybe 2%. So don't trade Bitcoin unless it's 1 or 2%. Here I have another example of why I do that, and I'm going to add Ethereum to that as well because it just takes out the entire bot and it skews the overall P&L. So I'll have to add that to that list of don't trade Ethereum, Bitcoin unless we're at a certain level on the weighted average, and that again is measured by these guys here. So they're all positive. Ethereum, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, and Bitcoin. Okay, all right. So what I wanted to do is do something really different today. I'm going to load up my good old Facebook here. If there's anybody on this stream, hang on here, because I want to get. I've been wanting to do this for a couple of weeks now, due to the fact that we have a situation where things are pretty crazy right now. First, let's go into an editor. I just want to free flow here. All right. All right. All righty. Yeah, I have to get rid of a couple of programs here because they do crash the overall system. Got too much stuff on this system, I might add. So let's get rid of some programs here. All right, so all these browsers are very bad. They take up a lot of memory. All right, so we should be okay now. Let's load up Word. Surprisingly, that can be pretty good. All right, so like I said, this is going to be one of those situations. So here's some headlines right here we can work with. The Fed, the U.S. Fed. It's amazing how they're getting very desperate. So we have coronavirus we could talk about. Talking about the shutdown of the economy, Trump. I think it's more than any of this, but these are good topics to start with. Let's see what the Fed wants to do here, because this is getting kind of ridiculous in how the Fed has just been pumping out, what, $1.5 trillion, another trillion for another bailout for everybody. And it's just it's absolutely amazing. Oh. So this is really bad. You don't even know what NAD is anymore on this. Okay, let's hope that that is a proper article. Okay, so we know that the markets have sunk quite a bit for the last 3-4 weeks now, and pretty severe. I'm sure a lot of people have not wanted to look at their portfolio reports because it's pretty depressing, I'm sure. We have other situations where we have coronavirus. We could talk about that. I'm not wanting to spend a lot of time unless there is folks out there. If anyone's got any questions or comments, please type away. So let's talk about this Fed business. This is a joke. The Fed was created to prevent these sort of crises, and all it turned into is pretty well an organization owned by private banks and other consortiums external to the U.S. And they have so much influence, and they're private. They have nothing to do with the government. They're independent from the government, but yet they could just willy-nilly print a money off a computer and add it to their books, and just think it seems to be okay with little regard of long-term effect. Now, here's my view of how they're trying to defend this coronavirus business. What they're doing here is they want to give money away to all Americans so that they can have $1,000, $2,000 for what, a month, 2 months. Beyond that, forget the deficits, forget the GDP. Let's say with the U.S. and U.S. is probably a good one to go with because they are the ones that are the backstop for the world with the U.S. dollar, the petrodollar, and they're just not effective anymore. They used to be up in the 2008. This is the Fed, of course. They've spent their last bullets. They had 10 years to really clean up their act. They pretty well have not done that. So there's a site called tradingeconomics.com. And if you are not used to this, there's the debt to GDP ratio. And this is very, 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 very important. The GDP of the U.S. and pretty well the output, competitive output of the U.S. is very, very low. So this is a national government debt, and we can look at the national debt if we want. Looking at the clock, there is a clock that ticks. Let's see if this will bring up the live one. Yeah, this is a real-time one. So here's a national debt clock. Okay, a lot of people may not know about this, so you're looking right now live. The U.S. national debt, $23.5 trillion is owed. Okay, the spending has been $4.7 trillion, and we're only in March, and they're already at $1.3 trillion debt. Here's a national debt, 76 trillion unfunded debt. Okay, so I could go on and on about this. Okay, and there's the website U.S. Debt Clock. Okay, I could go on and on and on and on and on about that. Okay, that doesn't mean a lot, or it does mean a lot. But here's the ones that are really, we'll just leave it, sick. All right. So here's the worst countries with the highest debt to lowest GDP. So you have Japan, which is at 238. Italy, Greece we know about. Lebanon we know about. I don't know if you heard about a few months ago, like huge protests. Italy, well, we know about them. Singapore, which surprises a lot of people. But U.S., this is the one we need to worry about. U.S. is just in a real world of hurt right now, as I just showed you on the national debt level. As long as they keep piling on the debt, as long as they keep racking up that national debt, you'll notice here we have a lot of the Western countries, Canada, Spain, France, Singapore, Italy, Japan, okay? And I can give you a lot of information about Canada because I live here. And I guess it doesn't get so bad. 880 is the upper limit. So what this means is when you look at the relationship between these countries that are listed here with the high debt, low GDP, this coronavirus is going to make this situation a lot worse, because you can see this was December 18. So before the coronavirus, these countries were already up there with, again, high debt to GDP. So these countries are really heavily affected by the coronavirus. Japan, not so much. Italy, for sure, obviously. U.S., France, and Spain. Canada, we're not too good. EU, and you can see Germany, Switzerland won't be up here, but UK is still pretty high. And it's the reflection of how well these countries are measured to react to this. And as I talked about with the Fed, that they've already added another 2.5 trillion to this national debt. So when you look at a country like China, okay, where does China fit in? So look where they are. They're at 50. So their debt level is very low, so they can easily absorb these kind of crises. Another one that needs to be talked about is, let's see if I can find it. It's not on here, probably under Europe. The one country we need to really talk about is Russia. Okay, we could talk about the price war. Look at it; it's really low. Russia's 14.6. You have China at 50. Okay, and then if you wanted to talk about other countries like Saudi, or we'll just leave it at those three: China, Russia, and probably Saudi are very low. And I bring those countries up because those countries are now pretty well going to become wealthier over time. I say that because of one thing: the national debt for these countries to GDP is very, very low compared to what I've highlighted U.S., UK, a lot of the Western countries. So this coronavirus has had a major effect on wealthier countries. Can they get out of it? Maybe, but at what cost and at what what in terms of productivity? What a lot of these economies have shut down. So as a result, here's the wealthiest country in the world: 48.4 Qatar, as an example, or Oman, 47.5, or but at the end of the day, the large oil producers are the ones that will. Saudi Arabia at 19.1, and these are, especially for the states on an oil production, those are the primary competitors, and yet the U.S. has this debt and has relied on oil, shale oil, to be precise, to help it keep the economy afloat and abuzz. But one thing I did produce, that's very important to understand, is in Saudi Arabia to produce a barrel of oil, it's $3. In Russia, it's $7. And the U.S., it's $50. So Saudi Arabia can easily afford to drive down the price of oil. And when you look at the price of oil, you can see up here that that's what they've pretty well accomplished. And they did this right in middle of after the launch of 2185. Okay, so it's 2185, and Saudi Arabia decided, trying to negotiate with Russia, trying to get them to come aboard and do an oil cut, production cut. Russia said no. So what did Saudi do? They did a price war to bring down Russia. Well, Russia, as I said, has such a low debt to GDP, they can somewhat long-term afford it, and they have a ton of gold to back it up to keep their debt in line if it does get out of hand. But the one that really gets hurt is the USA. Now, the other thing with the coronavirus, it's done something called demand destruction. So even if Saudi Arabia does decide to do this, no one's going to be buying oil anyways, because the economies are not really producing as they should, with the exception right now because China is leading the way out of the with their economy, recovering the fastest and the soonest and the earliest out of this coronavirus. So that is a question that we need to ask. How and why are they able to do this? Well, let's talk about the coronavirus. I've talked to various people. If you were on the stream for the we called it Paul Cottrell last week, who's now a PhD one, and now a PhD. He's going for medical at Harvard. He's saying that this coronavirus is definitely bioengineered, meaning it's not natural. So we hear about the rumors about this thing was coming from some back alley wet market with a bunch of sold off so-called fresh animals, as well as a lab in Wuhan, and that got out of control. And then even the Chinese government is trying to say that it's an American embedded virus that they somehow put into somewhere in China and let it spread from there. So let's look at those. So the virus spread in Wuhan. Now, one of the things that Paul Cottrell mentioned was level 4 labs. Okay, so level 4 is biosafety level. Okay, so 1 all the way up to 4 is the most strict level is out there for viruses. So obviously this virus would easily probably fit in a level 4. So when you look at the locations of these labs, let's just say China as an example, because that's where it came from. How many level 4 labs are there? So here's the only lab in China that can handle this. There's only one lab can handle the new coronavirus. So notice the date, January 22nd, the early days of this virus. And the only one is in Wuhan. So chances are this is where it started. Okay. Now worldwide, there's quite a few. I was told it's 18, but it's got to be more than that. Wikipedia had a list right here. So with these labs, we have one in Canada and Winnipeg. There's a bunch around DC. And this is quite funny. When you look at these locations, right here. Okay, so this is where they start. We have one, as I said, in Winnipeg. We have the only one in Wuhan or in China. There's another one here. But you see here, Wuhan Institute of Virology. Okay. Then we have for veterinary defense. And this is where it gets very interesting. Biological Defense Center. Okay, so you could tell just by the name that some of these are for tropical medicine. Okay, they come out of jungles, I guess, that's fine. But when you start hitting the American ones, high security animal disease laboratory. Okay, so they say that might be National Institute of Virology. Okay, now there's going to be a bunch that will go. Are they used for military purposes, or are they used for medical reasons, like coming out of, let's say, the jungle, or for vet reasons? So we have one here in Russia. Communicable diseases, okay, like STD, sexual transmitted, maybe that might be wise. We have here one in Sweden. Now, it would make sense that Switzerland, they're a neutral country, right? Now we get into UK. Look at this name, Health Protection National Institute for Medical Research. Is that a one for military purposes? Who knows? Vet, animal. But I want to show you the ones from the U.S. Here we have one from a Fort Collins, a military fort. Center for Disease Control Prevention Division. Now imagine this. This is on Fort Collins. Okay, so that's the CDC is in a fort. Okay, bingo. That's a military. Okay, CDC for Prevention Control. Okay, that's the national U.S. Georgia State. Notice that they're all out of Atlanta. National Bio and Agro Defense Facility. Oddly enough, that's farming. I can work with that. This is where it gets very interesting now. Now we have National Institute of Health, Bethesda, Maryland, which is a wealthier part of or close to Washington, D.C. Integrated Research Facility, again, Fort Detrick. Okay, so again, and that's again around D.C. National Biodefense Analysis and Countermeasure for Detrick. Again, U.S. Army. Look at this. U.S. Army Medical Research Institute of Infectious Diseases, Fort Detrick. Okay. National Emerging Infectious Disease Laboratory. Okay, I don't know what that would be used for. Rocky Mountain Lab, Hamilton, Galveston National Laboratory, and then another laboratory and Texas Biomedical Laboratory. So this is where it gets really weird. Why would the U.S. have a good chunk of these in military bases like forts? So you could tell that they have been working, and I'd probably say uh, quite an investment for military defensive purposes. Okay, so here, back to the UK, we have Portondown. That's a big base. Center for Emergency Preparedness and Response, Defense, Science, and Technology. Military. Okay. I could go on and on and on. Big investment with UK and the US. Uh, Not so much in China and Russia as compared to the US and UK. So that comes back to the question, where did this come from? If the US is spending so much money on infectious diseases militarily or something, would it not be safe chances of maybe this virus did come from the US? There's one rumor that says that there was worldwide, there was an article I just did see here. I have not seen this before. That's why I'm using DuckDuckGo. Now, there's this article here. It says you can go inside the Chinese lab on how they work. I think they do that for just PR reasons. It's incredible. Let me see if there was. Okay, so we've talked about this virus here. I like DuckDuckGo for these type of topics because we don't get the bias with Google. So if I look up level 4 lab, okay, and I look up Wuhan, let's see what kind of news stories we can get. Wuhan. Let's see what kind of stories we pop up. So there's a story about a warning. So here we have, did Wuhan, so Newsmax is one of those sites you gotta question. So let's see here, the U.S. forewarned, let's see when this came out. Metro, I don't know if that's a tabloid. So here we have January 24th, 2020. They warned that this virus was out way before that, like just after Christmas. So I don't think this is a valid story. But so here's when this China first biosafety level 4 put in operation January 2018. So that's only a 2-year-old lab. Now this is where it may have come from. One thing a lot of people don't know, and that is being pointed at, is there's the Global Military Games. Now, a lot of people don't know about this. This is the interesting part. It's called the Olympics. So different armies have Olympics to compete, military world games. All right, so this is legit. Started in 1995. So they have military world games. Now, funny thing is, where did the 2019 start? Was, there you go, Wuhan, 2019, October. All right. So you got to ask yourself, timing is funny or what? Okay. So if I look at the countries that were involved in that, let's see, 2019. There's not much news on this. Okay, so here we go. China will host the World Military. So this is something that needs to be understood. Like, what countries are involved? See, we don't get a lot of news on this because, well, a lot of people didn't know about it. But there you go. Let's see here. Let's see, country list. This is where the suspicion would come about. So here we go. All right, so I could go on and on. This could be an easy rabbit hole to go down, but I thought I'd mention this. But we have to admit that this virus was easily. I'm just looking for any country list. Oh, okay. Here's the sporting events, but I don't know. Interesting story there. So back to China. So did this thing start out of China? For sure. Uh, who was it planted by another country through these events, or did it happen because of this lab lost control? Who knows? Interesting comments here. So here, accidentally, at the same time, novel coronavirus research appearance, bioweapons research, accidentally released it. Okay, I could pull up other articles on this. There's one called The Science. Coronavirus. This is pretty legit, I think. They knew about this thing back in 2015. Let's see, I think it's called thescience.com or org. No, I don't know. Anyways, seemed legitimate. There was a warning about this. Now, we go on and on about this virus, but look at the havoc it's wreaked. Okay, the markets have been down for a long time, and I mean, a lot of people are getting hurt and wiped out because of this. So the question is, why would this be released if it is a uh, bioengineered virus, as admitted by somebody I can kind of put trust in, as I said, who that came out of last week. So the question becomes, as I said, when you look at these numbers here, especially on the country list, debt to GDP. So another interesting stat we should take a look at are the wealthiest countries in the world. Okay, there was a very interesting. Now, there's different ways to measure countries. So if we did a comparison, you could measure by measurement of countries that have the highest earning per citizen, where Qatar would be it. Just alone, we want to measure and use the national debt to filter out the bad ones, namely the West. I think it's quite interesting if I could find an article here. So here we talk about the ones we already know about on the national debt level. That's not very helpful. So we don't want just using GDP alone. Again, I'm not going to waste my time. We could look at let's see if this is it, the wealth record. Yeah, this is way off. Anyways, what I wanted to show you is an article that was found somewhere that said the top 10 wealthiest countries, filtering out the national debt, as according to tradingeconomics.com, half of them were in the Mideast. Okay, so those are oil generating countries: Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and whoever else that I can't think of. And they don't have tax. Another big factor we got to factor in is tax. Okay, we'll try to remember to talk about that in a little bit. But when it comes to the wealthiest countries, true wealthiest countries, a lot of them have very little debt, a large stockpile of oil, and the oil the world cannot get off of. Like, I don't care what the tree huggers say, oil's not going anywhere yet. Who knows? But so when you look at that, a lot of them are also tax-free or have very little tax. I was watching video after video, a debate for Canada. Should billionaires be taxed to no longer existing? And majority of the Canadians in this poll said yes, over 2/3. It's crazy. So what they're doing is they're saying in Canada, and could be the same in the States and throughout Europe, that if you're an entrepreneur and you do extremely well, where you become literally a billionaire, they will not support you. That's another way of saying we are killing off entrepreneurship. So all they look at is tax. They think tax will be the answer to all problems. You can always look at countries like France that in 2014 introduced a tax of 75%, and see how that did. That was in 2014. So if I was to look up that example, how did they do? And this is with a socialist government, I might add, of 75% tax rate. And they ended up having to pull back because they realized, here you go. Here's the article, The Guardian, headline: France forced to drop 75% super tax after meager results. So our socialist Hollande wanted to enforce that. Okay, didn't do too well. So if you're making over $1 million or €1 million, you would be taxed 75%. So it didn't do too good. So all these nut jobs, 2/3, think it'll work in Canada. All right, and taxing to the extreme will not work. Why? Because these billionaires will just say F you and move to places like Switzerland, Singapore, and anywhere in the Mideast that will take them and house them and welcome them with open arms. And that's the world we live in, the competitive world we live in. So if you tax billionaires and you think that's the answer, it ain't. And as I said, in 2014, didn't work in France. Okay, So look at all the social problems that France has gone through since. All the riots in Paris with the, whatever they call them, the orange vested people or whatever running around and burning Paris. Didn't work out too well. And that's the direction we're going in now with coronavirus, because it's frozen up everybody's economies, people losing jobs, people losing their businesses because there's no demand. But taxing will not help you, okay? And when you look at these numbers here of the Americas, especially with the U.S., Canada, they think, well, we'll just tax them to the hilt. It ain't gonna work. Okay. There's lots of places. I watch a website called Nomad Capitalist, and they've been doing this for years. And let me just go back. It's basically tax avoidance, but it is tax avoidance. And at the end of the day, there's going to be billionaires, millionaires moving out and looking for places to go where it's tax friendly, because countries decide that they just think taxing is going to be the answer. So there's this guy, he's all over the YouTube on that. Andrew Henderson is his name. So taxing is not the answer, and that's not going to help anybody else. So we've talked about the coronavirus, the root causes. We already know what it's done to a lot of people, even around you, with jobs. We've talked about where it may have come from, and so on. But the answer is, we know all that. We kind of know about the tax situation. What can we do? So here's some of the solutions. Right here, I would say, if you've not seen this article I posted yesterday in the celebration of putting this out there, doing this webinar on this topic, here's the solution. It is called cryptocurrency. Okay, so here is my results since March 13th. Okay, when this coronavirus has hit really hard. Okay, so here's the results: 176 positions put out there, and not with the big ones. Profit and loss with minimum amounts being tested. Win-loss ratio of 47%, which is it's okay in this hard time. Rate of change return is 10%. So if you put in X amount, you can expect over between today, the 23rd, and the 13th of March, in 10 days, you would have gotten back 10%. And when you look at the rate of change for today, you can see we're talking 1%. Now, if I take out, as I use just as a simple rule, this big boy here at $129, because of its Ethereum, which I hinted at earlier, and it loses, which it did, that will easily skew all the results. So again, I've already talked about that rule on Bitcoin and Ethereum for this particular bot. But getting out of that, your answer is right here. It's crypto. Okay, we're not talking about. So if I go to CoinMarketCap.com, which is the one on overall coins out there, is over 1,200, but I think it'd be easily whittled down to probably 50 in a very short time. We can see here, crypto is at 4.68% in a 24-hour period just on Bitcoin alone. Bitcoin Cash at 4.69, and so on and so forth. Most of it's paused in the last day. Okay, that's all fine and good. Now, what about people moving crypto or trading it or speculating with it? if you go into the largest exchanges, these are the amounts that people are trading with. So these are the largest exchanges out there right now. I'm with Binance, very happy with them. But look at the volumes that are being traded, over 6 billion per day. Yeah, 6.3, and other ones as well. Now, I use this metric here because this is the only one that's to be relied on. All these other ones are falsified by other exchanges. So when you go into the liquidity metric, you can somewhat say, okay, maybe these are valid. All right. So when you look at what's happening in the world of crypto, a lot of Asians are betting in crypto. I should use the word speculating because that's kind of what it is. Speculating in crypto. So you got this one exchange that's at $6.3 billion per day, 24 hours. And one thing you got to remember is that crypto never closes. I was trading this yesterday, Saturday, Friday, and it never closes. You could have Christmas Day, any holiday, it's still open and running. So if crypto does well, and let's say you did get, safe to say, 1% a day in returns, at here we're talking rate of change here at 1%, okay, and you go back to that article I showed you, over 10 days, 10% over 10 days, it's 1%. If you're able to achieve 1% each day, and that's just, let's assume if you're trading stocks, you're trading some kind of commodity, or regulated commodity, including Forex, and you get 1% a day, okay, good. But now if you add on another 2 days during the week, Saturday, Sunday, you've now boosted your potential return another 20%, because that exchange never closes. That's the case with crypto. So that's one of the big potentials of crypto. Another thing with crypto, it's not controlled. Okay, when you look at the blockchain for Bitcoin or the new one for Ethereum, these are not controlled. No one owns these. These are purposely decentralized. Governments don't own them. Corporations don't own them. There's no third party that owns them. So, and that brings us to, well, nobody owns them. There's no transaction fees. Okay, no third party transaction fees. So you do a trade through or a transfer through your bank, they're going to charge a 1-2%. And you can also transfer this to anybody in the world, anywhere in the world, with no, just, you could do it anonymously through wallet IDs, which are basically a long string of numbers and alpha characters, where that means nobody knows. You could not be associated with that, because they're trying to control this by doing things like know your customer, anti-money laundering. Now, we could talk about all those criminal effects, but when you look at cash, U.S. cash, that's used for criminal purposes. So that's not a problem with the financial instrument, cash. It's a problem of a flaw of the human race. Human species will always be involved with criminal activity. So if it's not in cash, it's going to be moved into an anonymous coin or crypto like Bitcoin or some other crypto coin. You can never get rid of that. But what they'll do is they'll say, for your safety, as well as your security, don't use crypto. That's a flaw. The cryptocurrency or the coronavirus is a classic example of that. The U.S. government, and probably your government, your city government, municipal government, is already controlling you because they're quarantining you. You can't do this, you can't do that. And now they're trying to do that with your cash. And they already can do that. So this is a sort of instrument that governments are very afraid of, because it's decentralized and it is, you can't stop it. So they're trying to control all access points. So when we come back to here, the national debt of a country against the GDP, and you start to see these figures, especially in the US, where it's over 100%. So for every dollar that is earned, $6 of that's going to be owed somewhere to the government, to another country that has invested into US Treasury and expecting a return. Okay? So as long as these numbers continue to go up, okay, you can see already previous 107 to the previous, it's going up. Canada, okay, not so bad, but it's not a good thing. So when those numbers start to get up, especially when you start looking at Japan, how's Japan performed over the last decade? Okay, they've not been doing too good. I mean, they are still producing cars. They're wealthy, but I'm sure their way of life has suffered because of it. And that's all started in the 90s, and they've not gotten out of this. 238, that's crazy. So what will happen is they'll start to tax, trying to squeeze wherever they can money out of people, especially the wealthy, and it'll trickle down to everybody. Okay, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Okay, I've already shown you an example of how taxing works in France under a socialist government. They ended up having to give it up because the wealthy were leaving, and it's the wealthy billionaires are the ones that create jobs. Okay, they do a lot of destructive things, yes, but when it comes down to it, governments, especially in the West, care about jobs. That's how they get elected. So you don't mess with the billionaires, in my opinion. And that's democracy and that's capitalism. Didn't work in France, and then they also point back to Sweden, all these Scandinavian countries, Norway. You also have to remember why it works there is because the society accepts it, and the other big key factors never talked about. It's a low population. Okay, when you look at the largest, or sorry, I should say the wealthiest countries in the world, okay, you look at them that are healthy and wealthy. Wow. They are very low population. Switzerland's low population, 8 million. All of Sweden, Norway, Finland, they're very low population. But when you start getting into the numbers of like 25, 30, 35 million, we have a problem with those countries because the population is so high or higher than these other countries that can absorb migrants that come into the country. They can absorb it, but their way of life also does go down. Sweden's a good example of that. But they can absorb it. Germany can absorb it, but they're getting hit hard as well. But they're prudent in how they manage their books. And the best part is now where, let's look up Germany, see where they're at on the debt to GDP. Germany is an interesting example. If I was to look up Germany, you can see it's only at 60. That's because they're financially responsible. They will not go into debts and deficits every year to manage their economy. But you get Western countries that want them to do that, to have financial stimulus and whatnot. And the Germans say no. But they also have taken in 1 million migrants in 2015, and where has that resulted in? Higher crime and whatnot. It's a fact. And a lot of the cities in Germany, well, not a lot, but quite a few, probably have high crime, namely Berlin and Hanover. But right now, they can still manage that, and they can absorb that amount. But they're being pushed to the limit when it comes to that. So we have all these different ways of looking at things. Germany is a fairly large country. It's the only example where they're able to financially be prudent at a national government level. But all the other countries I mentioned, Scandinavia, Switzerland, Singapore, low population. That's why it works. Nothing to do with socialism. Well, it does, but even if you were to add and put the word socialist around these countries, they do have a low population, but it will not work in larger populations like France, as an example. France is probably, well, let's see the population of France, because it doesn't work. We've already established that. Population. It's a large country. It's over 50 million, I believe. Yeah, 67 million people. So socialism will not work. It didn't work in 2014. So it comes back to tax. That's all you're going to see. Taxing your breathing, taxing your mailbox, taxing your running shoes, da 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 da. Okay? So that doesn't work. And these countries are going to get very, very desperate. So when you come back to crypto, governments are scared. And what they're trying to do is to control those access points on how you can get onto crypto. So let's look at an example of an exchange that's got it right. As I said, they have balanced that. Well, we'll let you open an account anonymously, but yet if you want to do it anonymously, you can. Okay. So let's say we want to register a Binance account. Now, a couple things here. This is a great example of where the world is going, especially from the U.S. perspective. So I'm going to show you a story with Binance. Okay, so I'm sure you heard this last year in 2019. Binance decided to, we use users. U.S. users are restricted because of quote-unquote regulatory jurisdiction and whatnot. So because of that, I don't know. I believe that the U.S. is not the freest country in the world, and I don't care what people say because it's not. When they go into basically martial law, quarantine, freest countries in the world don't do that no matter what. That's why they have guns, because they have the tyrannical during the Constitution. But here we are looking at TechCrunch, legitimate website, I guess, where they put so much heat on this exchange, revolutionary, innovative, and they said, you know what, we're not taking customers anymore because of U.S. regulations, okay? So Binance it's more than that. Binance just didn't want to deal with the heat of the U.S. feds, the IRS, or whoever, breathing down their neck on their customers and just making it, I'm sure, a hell for the CEO of Binance, okay? So is it worth going and venturing into the market of the U.S.? No. You could say the same thing about Dukascopy out of Switzerland, the Forex broker. They gave up the U.S. market, and many other Forex brokers gave up the U.S. market as well, because they knew that the U.S. regulators are going to go after these traders that want to trade crypto because there's tax avoidance. I'm going to show you how and why. It's happening in Switzerland with the Germans breathing down the Switzerland's back. Okay? So these are cries of desperation. That's all it is. Cries of desperation from these governments because they know they're losing control of investment confidence from foreigners into their countries. And as a result, citizens suffer because of that, and they get taxed to the hilt. So Binance now says, sorry, we don't want you Americans. Big market you are, but for what your government brings, not worth it. So that's what they've done. So when you look at Binance, just as an example of dealing with crypto and opening a crypto account, there is a website that Binance launched called Binance US for Americans. And I thought this would be a big success. I'm going to show you the trading volume of Bitcoin in US dollar
in fiat, US dollar. It's a joke. It's a complete joke. Actually, it's gone up a little bit. It used to be $1 million, but now Bitcoin in US dollars, it's $6 million traded per day. That's pocket change. Okay. Um, yeah, that's $6 million. That's all it is. Largest crypto in the world, only on this exchange, $6 million. It's gone up, but not enough compared to Bitcoin, world's largest cryptocurrency exchange, which, as I've shown you, it is. But if you go into coin market cap, okay, I've already shown you it's trading $6 billion. $6 billion. Okay. And that's on Binance.com, not Binance.us. Okay. So it's a small potato, small piece for the Americans on Binance US compared to Binance.com being traded. So with Binance.com, most of the people that are trading are Russians, Africans, and most of all Asians. Okay, all the Asian countries. That's why it's so big. So once again, it's just proof that there are systems out there, financial systems, where you can now transact, and now you can speculate $6 billion a day in a market on crypto. As I've shown you, 1% a day is pretty nice. Okay, which this thing's been doing. So knowing that as well, Americans get left out. And there's a reason why Americans get left out, is because the government is desperate for money and cash. They know it, I know it, and probably you know it as well. So Binance is getting heat for it, and it's not successful at all. It's only trading maybe 1% of the overall, not even 1%. Yeah, it's not even, it's just nothing. So we have a problem for Americans. But here's the interesting thing. So let's say you want to register on Binance. Look what you can do. You can open an account on Binance anonymously. Okay, so an American come in, and most likely through a VPN, Binance will take you anonymously. Okay, so let's see what the restrictions are on different Binance accounts. Okay. All right, so let's check it out. So there's different levels of accounts that you have with Binance. Okay, so we'll look at account restriction. So if you open up an account anonymously on Binance, what kind of restrictions will you have? So before we get in that, let's see the list of restricted countries according to Binance. Let's see, I've not done this before. All right, so here's the restrictions here. So first, let's see the countries that are restricted. 198 countries. They only have one payment method. Highly reviewed. I like them. Okay. So you want to get involved in crypto, okay, and you can do it anonymously, but the American government don't want you to. So let's look at the history. Here's the CEO, CZ, Changpeng Zhao. I probably butchered that name. Shanghai originally started out of Shanghai. The Chinese government put the heat on them. Then they moved to Tokyo. And then the Japanese government put heat on them, and now they're in Malta. Okay? So here we are dealing with Binance. So let's see what kind of restrictions they put on you. So register Binance.com. I find Binance very secure. So here, they have to do the verification, the know your customer business. So the levels of security, just so you know, it's pretty good because you'll hear complaints about, oh, it's not secure. That's BS. Binance put a lot of effort into security. So you have to do this little puzzle and put in a little hole, whatever. That's number one. You also have Google authentication or SMS authentication. If you were to do this anonymously, you have to do it SMS ties you back to the phone, which again, governments have ways of knowing who you are via SMS, via buying a SIM for your phone. So there's this other way, Google authentication. Okay, so you can download this app, Google Authenticator, for your phone, and you can authenticate that way. Okay, so now you're dealing with transferring money using this, what do you call it? It's like a barcode. Can't remember the name of it. QR code. So you can scan it very easily through your phone. And again, you can do that anonymously. Okay, so it's fairly safe. And then you will get your authenticator, let's say, that will sync up with your server. And then what will happen is you will have, once you set up the authenticator on the Google, you have to enter in these 6 digits every time you do a transaction on Binance.com with your account. And that's the second, kind of like the 2FA level of security. So you have to enter in that number or code into your phone before you do any transfers that are sensitive on Binance. So now you're dealing with 2 or 3 levels of security. All right, so there's the different levels of registration. Now, here's the thing. If you do this anonymously, and you do well, you only can, you can only withdraw 2 Bitcoins a day, okay? So there has been the drop in Bitcoin, okay? So if you're anonymous and you set up your account anonymously, not going through the verification, you will only be limited to 2 Bitcoins a day. Okay, I've not talked about what could happen with this coronavirus if things get really, really bad. So here, Bitcoin to USD. Okay, so that's going to limit you to about 6,000, let's say. Let's see here. Okay. No rich snippets in DuckDuckGo. Oh, here we go. Looks like it's going to push 7,000. Okay, so it's $6,300. Okay, so what we're saying is, as an anonymous user on Binance, you're only going to be able to withdraw 2 Bitcoins a day. So that means currently you'd be only able to withdraw 12,600. Okay, so let's go back to the coronavirus now. The coronavirus is going to have, and let's see what's going on in the news on a few things, because government control, banking control. So now let's say, as it happened in the 30s, we had bank runs. So if I do a search on coronavirus, let's see, were there any bank runs right now because of coronavirus? So this is going from the 30s with the bank runs during the Great Depression. So here we go. Let's see. Got one story already in New York. Here we go. This is today. Wow. This is what's happening already. New Jersey. Second mass coronavirus testing opens to huge lines. Okay, that's we don't care about that. Bank branch in New York suffers cash shortage. Okay, let's see what this is about. Be in crypto. Okay, this might be a little
bias. New York suffers cash shortage amidst coronavirus panic. This is 25 minutes old. Confirming that New Yorkers are taking out cash in record numbers, especially the wealthy. Ran out of bills, had to restock. So if you know with coronavirus that stores are running out of food, namely toilet paper, okay, namely now non-perishable goods, we've got a problem where cash is now running out. So what will happen is the government will step in and say, oh, well, we'll let you withdraw maybe $100, $200, $300 a day, maybe $1,000 per week, okay? Okay, that's serious. So that means you will be only, your own money that you earn, you'll be restricted on how much you can take out. So think about that. So another reason why you want to be on crypto. Okay, because crypto is your answer, I guess. So here they limit you 2 Bitcoins a day anonymously, but that's $12,600 right now, Bitcoin. So if you went just anonymously, you'd still be able to access, as long as Bitcoin stays at a certain level as it is now. You can withdraw 12 grand a day if you have that kind of money and you funded your account accordingly. All right, so we already see these bank runs already happening, and you can go back in time to see what happened in the 30s. Okay, this was the big fear. Coronavirus is not the fear, getting the virus. The real fear is the implications on it on an economic level. And not just on an economic level overall about how it's closing businesses. We're talking about you having a job where you may not be able to get money. But yeah, you could have $1 million cash in the bank, but now the government has controlled you on how much money you can take out per day. And here you go. You can already see it happening at a New York City bank because the wealthy see that. And that's just going to get trickled down. Okay, so that was updated March 16th, and today is the 23rd. So this is the next fear that could come out of this. So another use case for crypto. But there's still other restrictions when you register your account. Let's see if I can find it. Okay, so you do it anonymously. You get 2 Bitcoin a day. Now, when you go through verification, now this is where Binance has your ID. Okay, so you have your driver's license, passport as valid ID. Okay, so once you are now verified, your limits are increased a lot. Not sure what it goes up to. Oh, here you go. 24-hour limit, 100 Bitcoin. Okay, so now you can withdraw from your account if you fund it. 600,000 Bitcoin a day. Okay, so that is happening. Okay, I could go on about this, but these are things that we need to be aware of with the coronavirus and what it's going to do or potentially do. If we look at what happened in the 30s during the Great Depression, let's see what kind of problems we had. So if I look up kind of examples what happened with bank runs in the Great Depression, bank run occurs when clients would want to withdraw money from their bank because the bank will cease to function. They'll go bankrupt. So the government's brought in all of these
measures to make sure governments exist. But the thing is that we just saw what the Fed's doing. It's like, where are they getting all this money? Where are they able just to pull out 1.5 trillion dollars out of the blue? Where's it coming from? What's it based on? Remember, the U.S. is no longer on a gold standard. That's why they got off the gold standard, because they knew they could get away with this. And then that brings us to the problem of this: government debt to GDP. Now, somebody's got to fund this. If it's a Chinese or a country, to fund this, to fund these banks, to fund the Fed to be able to ensure a bank has your money when you want to withdraw it, as well as thousands of other people want their money 100%. And chances are your branch will only have maybe 5-10% of the entire amount of money in the bank that you want. And you have hundreds of thousands of people wanting the same. They want their cash. They can't cover it. Okay? And that's what causes these problems. And that loses confidence. What people don't understand, what causes depressions, is when people lose confidence in things. When the Chinese, the Mid-East, lose confidence in the U.S. government to back their U.S. dollar, to back their U.S. Treasury, and they lose confidence, that's what causes depressions. And that's what's going to happen. Because once the Fed decides to lower their fund rate to negative, that's when hell will break loose. Foreign governments will lose confidence in the U.S. And that's losing confidence. And that's just going to cause a Great Depression, if it happens. And then we get bankrupts out of that. So let's look at some of these stories in the 30s during the Great Depression. So again, remember, crypto, you can still withdraw quite a bit of crypto. Now, I can't really say that crypto and Binance and all these exchanges will be around forever. They could go bankrupt and you could lose your crypto. But it's still a better option than this. So many banks had the runs. It lasted for 10 years after the stock market crashed. That's just one day. We've hit the same drops from 1929 multiple times. Like, they've closed the circuit breakers 3 times. They may have closed it today for all I know. And that's how serious this coronavirus thing is. So we have these banks crippling the banking system. Banks to fold. So that means you have no money. You get wiped out. On and on and on it goes. So, here, the Emergency Banking Act. So what gets me is, which allowed the Treasury to oversee the reopening of more than half of the banks that were previously closed. So the Fed, the federal government, or the Treasury Department, now control what is going on with banks, where you can put your money. And it's corrupt. They also insured deposits of banks. It's not going to stop what's happening now. Why? Just look at this debt to GDP. I could keep flashing that in your face. Greece, as an example. Look what happened in Greece 10 years ago. And they're going to insure it. Really? You feel safe with your money in this system? I don't. Because they'll tell you it's okay, it's all good. You've heard that before. Last couple of weeks with the coronavirus. So I don't have confidence in it. And once you start to lose confidence, and the mass population loses confidence, that's what causes these panics in the banking system. Your money is no longer safe. And you probably are facing a situation where you may not have income because of coronavirus. Will it pass? It may. It may not. I don't know. But these are things where you need to have wake-up calls. All right, so it comes back to what could happen with bank runs, and we see that already in an article right here of beincrypto.com, March 16. So again, that's one of the nice things about crypto for now, as a way to get around that. So Binance is good if you can get in a Binance and you can still even anonymously withdraw two Bitcoin, which right now is $12,000. That's okay. So will Bitcoin go up in price? I don't know. No one knows. But right now it's up 4.59%. Okay, and that's higher than any of the other assets out there right now. If I go into Yahoo, this is live right now. So you got the major U.S. indices down negative. Crude oil is down 3.45. Gold is up 4.42, so that's a safe haven. Silver's up 3.96. Forex I wouldn't touch. Look at bonds. Look at bonds down 21%. That's confidence being lost. And funny enough, I don't know why VIX is not going up, the fear index. When Paul and myself was on, it was up to 90, and that is the Great Recession in 2008 peak. But look at crypto. It's the highest out there right now, 8.45. It's outpacing gold and silver, which is traditionally the place to be. But right now, you can see, Bitcoin is right now proven to be the safe haven with this amount of panic in the markets right now. So Binance might be a good place to be. But a couple other things I forgot to mention here about crypto is let me see here. Come on. Yeah, too much stuff open. Okay, here we go. So what are some of the big advantages with crypto? As I said, you can open it up anonymously. Boy, this system is really bad. Okay, anonymously it can be opened. Okay. We said it runs 24 hours, 7 days a week. So that includes weekends. Okay, so it never closes. Okay. Now the other thing is, I just shown you the returns that you can get with Bitcoin. And usually with Bitcoin, you can get really good returns with no leverage. Okay, that's really important because everyone goes on about Forex, but you get crazy returns at Forex, but you need crazy leverage. If it goes against you, you're cooked. Now, one of the things about volatility is, or crypto, a lot of people talk about crypto. Or sorry, they say in crypto the volatility is pretty crazy, which is true. Okay, the volatility is crazy in crypto. So why do you think you write these bots? So if you get into algorithmic trading, there are ways to defend your portfolio or your trading result to get 1% a day. So it can be done. I've convinced myself in the last 10 days to do that. 1% a day. And there was one day I got 15%. So even if you did get 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 negative days of 1%, you could get one day that could easily offset it. But there are ways to mitigate these losses, and that's through your strategy design. Okay, so that could be said for any major asset class that you trade. I'm trying to think of other examples. The coin selection is pretty wide. I've seen certain coins that do well when the big five don't do well. Okay, so right now, let's just check out what is the latest right now. It was positive last time we checked it. So 3 of them are negative. So that brings down the overall weighted average. Okay, So that's when the bot will go defensive and won't trade as much. So let's see what's happening with this bot. This last hour and 45 minutes, let's say, hour and a half. This is I'm blabbing here. So this is just today, okay? And as I said, one technique I can ensure that this thing is profitable is to, like, you could see a 60% win ratio, rate of change at 1%, but I know this one was a money loser. Ethereum, don't trade it because look at the amounts. If that loss is too big, it easily wipes out the entire P&L, and I don't trade it. Okay, so that is something again I can control here when it comes to volatility. Just one of many ways to do that. So nothing's really changed at all. So now it's took on another position, but still, chances are it's still going to make. Like I've been in this situation before, where it will come back over the next 12 hours and be positive. Even if it's not, I'm okay with that because I've had 10 positive days. I expect losses and losing days. So overall, I'm okay with that. So these are the advantages with crypto. All right, so we've covered a lot here. We've covered tax, how the government could steal, limit your ability in a crisis like this coronavirus, why they do it, where it's going to go, where's the escape, and so on. Because what's your likelihood of getting a stable income? I think people that lose their jobs right now or losing income, I can almost guarantee you right now that your employer will be figuring out ways to replace you. Replace you with a bot, replace you with a machine learning, or replace you with some type of technology. And if it's not that, who's better at doing your job and doing Joe's job as well and doing 3 jobs in one? That happened in 2008 and lowering the salary. So you cannot be dependent on a traditional job. So that leaves you with a few options. We're now living in a world where there's no more stable income. That's a guarantee. You will need to fight for your dollar that you earn. You will have to fight tooth and nail for it, however you do it. So it will be a business, and personally, I think crypto will lead the way in many ways, sadly as it sounds. And we may enter into a bad recession, potentially a depression. And how did the world get out of that depression? War. Okay, war. 1939, Germany. And that's what could happen. We don't want that. I don't want it. But it could take 5-10 years. Who knows? But right now, this is a situation we're in. And right now, if you look at Yahoo Finance with the real-time markets, the only one that's beating everything right now is crypto. Now, we talked about the volatility on how to circumvent it through algo trading. As well, I have to admit, crypto did get hit hard about a week ago. I lost 50% of my portfolio. If I had properly managed, I'm sure I could have circumvented that loss. If I had better reconnaissance, okay? Now, as I said, but crypto is not your safest and 100% guaranteed way to keep afloat. It's not, but it's right now, as I've shown you, the best one. So if you go to my blog, there is other ways to circumvent this. 2 things going on in the world of crypto, which I love, which I should add to this list. The data you get out there, if it's from an exchange or the blockchain, okay, is transparent. Okay, what do I mean by that? Okay, 2 articles I put regarding that big crash. There's this one, Bitcoin mining, quantlabs.net/blog for all those that are new to this. So we got this article, Bitcoin mining difficulty and hash rate lead indicator on price. That's for Bitcoin. Okay, so there are ways to get free data, transparent data on the blockchain or your exchange. Okay, so again, you can do that with Bitcoin, the world of Bitcoin, the world of crypto. It's out there. It's transparent. So, for example, when you look at the world of stock, which probably ticks off a lot of people, look up the word or the phrase dark pool. You have multi-billion-dollar operations, be it banks, hedge funds, individuals, whoever. They're able to trade in quantity, okay, what level they're at trading at in a dark pool, and no one would know. No one would know. But you can do that with Bitcoin, okay? You can track exactly how much is being traded on what side through all of this stuff. As an example, through the blockchain, okay? There's this project here through Python. You can do that. You can get full access to this, okay? Full access to everything on the blockchain, on the mining, on all the statistical information. This is really important right here, okay? So this enables you to see how much is being transacted or what the volume is. Okay, right here. All this stuff. Okay, I'm not going to get into technical mumbo jumbo, but this enables you to see what's happening on the blockchain. It's free, it's open, nobody owns it. So you can use this data as potential market direction, price direction. So if you know, and you do a historical, let's say, number of transactions over a certain time, and then all of a sudden it goes up or down, you know something's up. You know something's going to come down. And that's what some of these bot developers were able to figure out before that 50% crash from 10,000 to 5,000, 6,000 in 2 days with Bitcoin. They were able to track this. Why? Because they saw people withdraw out of the blockchain. Millions of dollars. That's information out there. You can't hide from that. So if you track that information, I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but I can give you all kinds of things that you can look at and analyze in real time to see what's going on. Total blocks, difficulty, how hard is it to withdraw and transfer on the blockchain, or mine blocks, or the hash rate, Really important information. Total blockchain. So if you're able to track this, these data points can be used as early leading indicators. And you can freely get that. You would not be able to get that sort of information through an exchange like the CME or through the CBOT or through the New York Stock Exchange. Can't be done. And if you could, you'd be paying a lot of money for it per month. Here, it's free, it's open, it's transparent, it's open source. Another big advantage with crypto. Okay, so that's how you can you can circumvent these massive drops. Okay, somebody sent me how much crypto was being transferred out of this exchange to that exchange. How do people know that? It's out there. This is what we call whale watching, and it's a lot of money. We're talking $50, $100 million transactions being transferred from one exchange to another, or being transferred out of an exchange to a blockchain, to a wallet. Okay, so that is very, very powerful information to know, and the important part is it's transparent and it's open. And you would only want to do it using and tracking Bitcoin because it has the volume. Just alone on Binance, we know that they're trading $6 billion a day. So if I go back to CoinMarketCap, let's see how much is being transacted with Bitcoin on the volume. It's very important because this is now, we just looked at US, Binance US. There's now 6 times the volume of Bitcoin than there were 2 months ago. So it's moving up. So here you go. Global volume, okay. Global volume is at 47 billion right now on Bitcoin. Tether, which is tied to the US dollar, is 58 billion. That's probably the biggest one. Number 2 is Bitcoin, and then number 3 would be Ethereum. Those are the ones you watch. So you can watch those blockchains to see how money is being moved around to exchange, and it's open. It's transparent. That is another big advantage that you get with crypto. Okay, so if you understand this data, you most likely can see when the big spikes are going to come or when the little spikes or market direction or the big drops will happen, because you can watch what the whale traders are doing on a level 9. You don't know who they are. You can't, because wallets and Bitcoin are just alphanumeric numbers. You don't know who owns it. Okay, it's all tied back to a QR code. So that's what the governments would love to know for the tax evasion and the whatnot of the money laundering, I guess you call it. But nonetheless, the volume's about 45 billion. Okay, and another 58 or 60 billion on Tether. That's big, and it's going to grow as the markets get bad. On Yahoo, we've talked about that. What's the number one instrument right now that's got the best return? Bitcoin. And even that index, that 200 crypto index did okay too. Okay, 4.36. It's on the same par as gold and silver. Okay, so that's 200 right here, the crypto 200 CMC. So that goes to show you why crypto's right now the number one asset class to have. Now, let me get into my pitch mode here. Okay, so if you want to learn more about this stuff, there's 2 ways. You just go to quantlabs.net. I've got some free books here, and just provide your email. And I also have a shop. Right now, there is a discount code of discount me in uppercase, 20%. I'm going to close that off later today. So if you're interested in any of the product you get under my catalog right here, you can get anything off at 20%. Okay. So there's this for the free product for the free DVDs, quantlabs.net, and then we also have the DVD. It's a DVD. It's a hard DVD. You can get shipped out to you, and there's a web edition as well for $10. Okay, and you can learn to do it via Motorwave. You can do it via Python, and so on. So there's different ways to do it. So here on my shop at quantlabs.shop, okay, right here, you can get all that stuff. Okay, if you want to learn more. Okay, this course right here, this Python 3 course, is the one you'd want to learn how to build these type of bots to give you the kind of returns I've been showing you here, or on the 10 days, 1% a day. Okay, so that's where you want to start if you're a developer in Python. This is your future. There's nowhere else to go. You may not have a stable income from this point on. Your job may be getting replaced, and you got to start doing it now. This is the only real resource out there. We've talked about where governments are going and taxing and running out of money. That's why they tax. And your prosperity is pretty well not looking good right now. And this is the only place you got to go. So that's it. A 2-hour, probably close to a 2-hour spiel. And I just want to say thanks for watching. I'm going to end this transmission, and hopefully you enjoyed it and got something out of it. But this is the reality we live in now. This is my worldview. Of course, it's Brian. You can always come over to quantlabs.net, quantlabs.net blog to learn more. And I'm on Facebook and YouTube at quantlabs.net on the YouTube or the podcast as well. Thanks for watching. Have yourselves a good day.